We had realized as the black farmers then that the outfit we were in was not made for the development and advancement of black growers.
For the introduction of SAFDA, it changed i-payslip yomlimi because beyingekho imali. But when SAFDA came, into yashintsha yonke. We see positivity kuma bank statement.
Small-scale farmers in this industry were just on the periphery. They were never at the center. They were never on the table. They were always spoken on behalf of. They never had a voice.
SAFDA is a vehicle that we can all use as Africans really to advance our cause in agriculture and land reform.
The South African Farmers Development Association, SAFDA, is celebrating its 10th anniversary since its establishment in November 2015. Although the organization's mandate has evolved over the past 10 years to provide development support to small and medium-scale farmers, predominantly black, across a range of agricultural commodities, SAFDA was initially established to be a voice and a representative of black farmers as one of the 3 associations that constitutes the South African sugar industry through the South African Sugar Association, SASA.
The sugar industry is one of those industries that are very, very important to the rural and deep rural areas of KwaZulu-Natal and Mpumalanga. And, without the sugar industry, those 2 provinces will be in trouble. So the economy of those 2 provinces rely quite a lot on the sugar industry.
Before the introduction of SAFDA, the industry was led and run by 2 associations, the South African Sugar Millers Association, SASMA, and the South African Cane Growers Association. Prior to the establishment of SAFDA, black small and medium-scale sugarcane farmers had fought a lifelong battle for better conditions of doing business in the industry. At the center of the fight was the black growers' quest for freedom of association. This had come about as they felt their farming business aspirations were not adequately represented by the South African Cane Growers Association, a predominantly white sugarcane farmers association that was set to represent all growers by default.
We realized that over the years, as we were advancing the cause, every time we raised issues of black farmers in an organization, we would be told it's not part of the agenda, it's noted, and we realized we're not going anywhere. And we saw the decline of our farmers, and we tried to lobby government using the same outfit, and unfortunately the leaders then refused even to partner government. So we saw that then our future is doomed. So when we put the memorandum, we were quite upset, quite angry, and very agitated that why would we sit in an organization that was just blatantly refusing the development of our growers.
It took me forever in my life to understand how the apartheid system was allowed to persist for so many years, yet it was so obviously wrong.
The sugar industry was an establishment of the apartheid law in the Sugar Act, which was a long promulgated piece of legislation, last amended in 1978, which was a prime time of apartheid. So you can imagine the conditions that were set there. It was conditions that only assumed, at some point it was even in the legislation that for one to qualify as a farmer in this industry, you need to be one of a European descent. You had to be white in plain language, for you to qualify to get what is known as a grower code, which permitted you to plant cane and get your cane crushed.
Every time that we would propose for the organization to consider implementing serious development for black growers, they just wouldn't agree to it. They would even go to an extent of saying they can't take levies that are paid by big farmers for the development of small levy payers. And those small levy payers, they were talking about the thousands of black farmers that belonged to that organization. So it was a frustration that was not only experienced by me, but it was also experienced by some of the current SAFDA leaders that used to serve in the board of directors for cane growers.
If you look at Tonga Juliet's cane supply, 50% of their cane supply is from land reform, from small growers, black growers and emerging growers. So out of the 5 million odd tons, almost half comes from black growers. And that was the future of the country. Because if the industry stayed lily white, there was no way we were going to get protection from the government. It had to transform. And SAFDA was that vehicle that would transform the industry, because no one else was doing it in the correct manner.
Farmers say they could no longer remain in organizations that failed to prioritize their needs. Their concerns were consistently overlooked and their voices went unheard.
Into ke yadala ukuthi siphume lapha ya ngoba njalo laba bamhlophe babethi bebeka kuhulumeni bathi sicela abalimi abancane uxhaso. Kodwa lufike lo xhaso lugcine ngafikanga la kuthina. Ilapho ke sabona khona ukuthi no, asiphume kulento.
Siseka cane growers akekho wayinaka indaba yethu kuba sasibona ukuthi siya drop okunoma sikhuphuke sabalimi siyehla nje ngoba sasithi masikhuluma esikukhulumayo kuthiwa no lelo point solibona emhlanganweni ozayo njalo kuthiwa emhlanganweni ozayo ngoba sifika iagenda siyakhiwe verse kusho ukuthi ngaleso sikhathi ke mawufika uSAFDA saduba iHM
ini ngendlela iqakile mama kanganga kuba ngacishe ngaphuma ekulimeni kwakutholakala ukuthi unesikweleti lo naso kamthoka akwanze bathi awubolekeki imali ngalawo mobo ufuna ukuthi wena uhlakulele ufakele manyoro ngala bakutshela ukuthi awubolekeki imali lokusho ukuthi insimi sekufanele usale uyithengisa ngisele nje nami ngaNkulunkulu.
SAFDA's founding members reflect on the bold decisions of leaving SA Cane Growers Association and form a new organization, declaring that it was no longer a choice, it was a necessity. The need for an alternative was not just clear, it was urgent and inevitable.
Ukufika kukaSAFDA susungula wasungulwa imshini eyu14 oyihlalo bemshini eyu14 ngesizathu sokuthi sasibona ukuthi njengoba singaphansi kokuphathwa abamhlophe ngesikhathi beyisungula inhlangano yabo bona babe nenhloso zabo sangena thina emkhumbini singathi inhloso yalomkhumbi ukuthi uyapi sithe sesiphakathi sabona ukuthi no asikwazi uba singahlala la kodwa abafowethu abalapha emuva emakhaya esibashile belambile mina ngihlala ku-Congress kwathi ngo-2015 aqalanga ngo-2015 kwaku-2014 sayihlanganisa lento kuthe ngo-2015 kuNovember ugcwele lapha kwashukela sesihlanganise kahle into ngale emahotela senze memorandum eyafika funda uDr Madlala emhlanganweni kugcwele ukuthi abamhlophe bathe mesukuma eyifunde memorandum ngithe ukuthi abelungu bakho umyibuko bazibeka phansi wabatshela ukuthi namhlanje siyaphuma kulentweni ngoba ayisisi ndawo kusho ibulldozer siyaphuma ke mesho kanjalo esukuma awu sasukuma nathi sasuma saphumela ngaphandle eminyango sashona kwenye indawo yasebhukiwe la safesa hlangana khona sabe sesophuma negama elithi inhlangano esisungulayo namhlanje uSAFDA South African Farmers Development Association. Into abantu abamnyama le.
We got together and we charted our own way as black farmers. And we, number one, we felt that we needed to be part of the industry in our own right. We didn't have to be tolerated in an industry that was owned by white farmers.
What they call transformation did not exist, because every time they wanted to count transformation, they would use our faces, but we were not expected to say anything about transformation.
SAFDA came in at a time when the farmers really needed assistance. There was no assistance at all for small scale and more so black farmers as such, because predominantly the cane sugar industry was dominated by the white cane growers, and we didn't have no vehicle to go to or use to assist the farmers.
The road to the recognition of SAFDA in the sugar industry was not going to be an easy one. After several failed internal diplomatic attempts, demonstrations and protest marches to fight their way into the industry, SAFDA resorted to writing to the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Trade and Industry. The impossible battle of competing with SA Cane Growers Association in legal fees was cut short by some shrewd advice from one advocate Anthony Brink, who, upon refusing to take money from the struggling poor black farmers, advised that SAFDA's was an ethical rather than a legal fight and can therefore only be won in a court of ethics and not of law. He advised that the organization writes to Parliament and requests to present the case before the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Trade and Industry, which the organization did on the 23rd of June 2017. SAFDA faced numerous obstacles designed to block its voice from ever reaching the national stage. Resistance came from all sides, determined to keep the status quo intact. But that changed when a parliamentary lobbyist saw the importance of SAFDA's cause and stepped in. With their support, SAFDA finally secured a seat at the table, an opportunity to present its case and fight for the recognition of thousands of marginalized farmers.
The journey first started with a phone call from my brother Kival, who is a farmer himself. And he told me, please, there's this new organization that's been formed called SAFDA. It speaks to our people, and you have to help them get their voice heard. It was firstly explaining who SAFDA is, why was SAFDA created, who were these people, because it wasn't the big organization that you know of now. There's the small group of inspired people who wanted to make a change. So, the people are always skeptical of new faces, and so it was a lot of that. So the first thing was then, the first thing we had to do in terms of the parliamentarians was to tell them about what were the issues in the sugar industry and educate them and then get them on board. So I think the first political parties that were supportive was the EFF and the DA. And, getting the EFF and the DA, as you would know, together to support a matter, we were like so delighted. That was in itself an achievement. And then the next step was the ANC. So we had already spoken to the chair of the portfolio committee, Mam Fabs. She was already on board. So we knew we had her. And, in the way I saw it was like we were bringing the voices that were all on the one side together. And everybody was, all political parties were then going to support this.
I remember when I got a call to come and present our case in Parliament. It was many attempts that have failed. We've written to Parliament, and even to a degree that some of the leaders felt there's no point in writing to Parliament. But one of the key stakeholders was our lobbyists, Polarity Group. Adira just called me and said, send me another letter. And at that time, Everyone had lost hope in sending letters to Parliament, and they thought we need to take it to courts. We've done courts. We understand that, even apartheid was legal. So you couldn't take it to courts because courts would actually support what was legal then. So even that of not accepting SAFDA's recognition was still legal for them. So we had to challenge it in the court of public opinion, and that's when we wrote that letter. I remember that letter. It was a few weeks later that the portfolio committee chairperson called. I remember I almost jumped out of my car seat, and when she called and said, Comrade Chair, I see that you've been meaning to come to Parliament, and your letters unfortunately had never come to me until I see this one. And I said, yes, there's so many attempts. And she asked, are you going to come? Can you come and see us? I said, even today. And she laughed about it and said, no, come the following week, which we then arranged. That was our turning point.
We're here to ask one thing. That 1994 came. For whatever reason, good or bad, the sugar industry did not emigrate. When all of us transformed from the pre-1994 to post-1994, this industry was left behind. We are just asking that this industry be emigrated into the new South Africa.
We heard some shocking information. In fact, we couldn't believe what we were hearing. Up to that point, we did not know that black sugarcane farmers were still classified as criminals, were still on the statute book. I mean, with our new constitution. I said, gosh, no, obviously that's got to go. So now we needed to work fast, and to expedite a bill or an amendment through Parliament, you need to work with the Speaker. So I went to see the Speaker. She just didn't believe me, and then I showed her. She said, Fabs, I can't believe this. I said, yeah, look. She said, no, full support. Let's put this, prioritize it, which we did indeed do. But it was only on this being pointed out to us by SAFDA that we became aware. And I said to the Speaker, I wonder how many other pieces of legislation have got this apartheid stuff in.
It came through even when we spoke about SAFDA to members of Parliament. They could see that this was like a struggle, a real struggle, but like it was pushed by people with true commitment. And I think that inspired them as well. It was like, the journey, the struggles in the past, revolutions that, we were not really part of, the younger generation, but this was our commitment to change and betterment for the country.
The first one happened in Parliament itself, where SAFDA had brought a bus of farmers representing the association that had driven the whole night without stopping for food and arrived in Parliament just on time for the meeting. And when they got in the room, the atmosphere changed, because I think the parliamentarian originally wondered who are these people coming in, and suddenly they could put a face behind SAFDA, which wasn't just the organization, but which was the people. And we could see the face of the parliamentarians changing, as well as the face of the people that were opposed to SAFDA at the time changing into more of a panic mode. And I think by the time we finished that meeting, SAFDA had won, or the people that came had won the heart of the parliamentarians, who really felt we've got to do something to help those people. They wrote statements that were negative. So they literally were selling their cane and getting an invoice of how much they owed the mills. And I think that was a revelation for the parliamentarians when they could physically see the statement showing a negative amount. The other breakthrough for me was when we took the parliamentarians to the rural areas and they could see the condition of the people. And ultimately, I think what happened is that they felt they could play their role as parliamentarian, which is to change lives of people, and for which most of them got involved into politics. And it was really to change their life. And I remember talking to some of them afterwards, and they said, of all the legislation that we did, this is the one where we feel like we have seen the real change in the life of people, and that made us so proud of being parliamentarian and having done our job.
We have a federation.
At one stage at the committee meeting, they came with a big entourage of lawyers and didn't want to engage the committee on a one-on-one and wanted to speak to the committee through the advocates and senior counsels and those things. And there you could have seen that these people are willing to pay a lot of money to exclude SAFDA from this association. I could see their struggles. I could see the drive between the members of SAFDA that came to us and pleading to just have a step in the door and having that recognition that they rightfully have to have.
SAFDA's eventual recognition marked a turning point, not only for the organization, but for the entire sugar industry. It triggered significant legislative reforms, forcing the industry to reckon with its past and begin paving a new path towards fairness, inclusion, and transformation.
The way to then include SAFDA as a member was that we then needed to change the constitution of SASA. So we looked at all ways of doing that. And eventually, we started off with SAFDA being part of transitional arrangements within SASA. So SAFDA was included in the SASA Council and so on, but they weren't part of the constitution as such. And in 2020, we then amended the constitution and we made them a permanent member.
Then came a moment that would be officially written into the history books. On the 28th of March 2024, the Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, Ibrahim Patel, officially promulgated through a government gazette the appointment of SAFDA as a permanent member of the South African Sugar Association, SASA. This was more than just recognition. It was a revolutionary step. This also meant that government had formally fast-tracked transformation in the sugar industry, validating the struggles of farmers who had long been left out of the system.
Our decision to get SAFDA permanent status was motivated by two considerations. The first was historical redress. For 180 years, Black South Africans have been growing sugar. And yet at the end of that period, they had no permanent seat in the decision-making structures of the industry. Sugar is being grown on land that was owned by their ancestors. It is still being grown by small-scale farmers, Black small-scale farmers. And so historical redress, dealing with the challenges of the past, required that this democratic government needed to ensure that Black sugar farmers are included in the decision-making structures. But the second reason was the future, that we needed partners that were strategic in their thinking, that could grapple with how to grow the industry.
Receiving, the documents from the ministers that you are now a permanent member means that the foundation is solid, it's been laid, and nothing's going to shake it. Then others can build on that foundation however they feel like. I believe the leadership that actually received and achieved that has set such a solid foundation that now SAFDA can proudly outlive us, because it being permanent means we're not begging anyone for existence. We are now permanently receiving levies to continue running our organization and permanently representing our farmers in the sugar industry. Nothing moves without SAFDA's voice.
The step that was taken by Minister of Trade and Industry to actually ensure that SAFDA become part of the mainstream, in my view, I think that has really fast-tracked transformation in the sugar industry.
SAFDA's recognition sent shockwaves across the broader agricultural sector challenging industries long viewed as resistant to transformation. It became a bold signal that change was not only possible, it was inevitable.
When SAFDA first temporarily got recognized by the minister, the entire agricultural sector was shaken. The timber industry were terrified that now they've started with sugarcane. They are coming to us in timber, they're going to come to us in grains, they're going to come to us everywhere. So in a sense, the recognition, in a sense, kind of shook the white agricultural commodity organization. They changed their posture a little bit. But the second thing that I personally saw was that even those that were reluctant to participate in the empowerment of black farmers suddenly came to the party. Quite a number of them. Suddenly, Potato SA, Grain SA, quite a number of them suddenly started showing interest in working collaboratively with government, just like SAFDA has been doing. So in a sense, the impact of SAFDA is not limited to the sugar industry. It has impacted on the other commodities across the agricultural value chain.
And I think that there's a camaraderie and a uniformity that exists within the sugar industry that maybe didn't exist 10 years ago. And maybe it's an industry for other sectors in the agricultural value chain to model itself on. And so while I say there's a lot more to be done, and I think that there is, I think that the sugar industry today has a better chance of survival and success than it did a decade ago. And I think that that's hugely important to recognize that. And it's something to be built on for the future.
The 10 years of the organization in operation has seen some significant milestones in improving the livelihoods of farmers and farming communities in its areas of influence. With the establishment of SAFDA, the sugar industry and the agricultural sector in South Africa will never be the same.
What SAFDA has achieved is they've brought small-scale farmers, small-scale sugar growers to the very heart of the industry, not as a side grouping, but as an engine right at the center of the industry.
Its impact in raising the rural economy has been, in my view, very profound, in a sense that it actually has brought the rural mainstream into the broader economy. Because remember that a lot of farmers, part of their constraint, apart from access to land, has been the tools to work the land. And I think that's where SAFDA has come in very handy, in my view, to actually jumpstart even people who might have been there in the industry before, but were basically struggling about how they can actually make it sustainable. So what SAFDA has done has been to come at the back end in terms of production infrastructure, but at the same time, hand-holding the farmers to understand the entirety of the value chain.
We've been able to force this industry to set up transformation structures and programs to empower black farmers. One of them that you can mention is the Transformation Fund that was set up in 2018, 1 billion rand that was going to be dispersed over the next period of 5 seasons or 5 years. Black growers have benefited tremendously from that fund. Up to now, they appreciate all that because it's something that started happening with the emergence of SAFDA.
That the difference between a first world community and a third world community is that in that community, everything is central there. So the beauty of SAFDA is trying to get the balance right of bringing first world amenities to third world communities. And if you see what's happened with the FPSUs and the rollout of bringing those services at the same prices that you do if you had to go to the towns. So it's trying to level the playing field so a farmer actually has an equal opportunity and you don't have to always have an initiative where you're trying to subsidize them. So sustainability is the biggest thing, and the only way you're going to have sustainability is when you support those local communities.
Kukhulunyelwa embonini ngeliphimbo lelivakalako lenilwela umlo omnyama kufike naSAFDA konke lokho, and ngola sibone khona imboni ishintsha kakhulu, imlalela kakhulu umlimi lomnyama, ngoba SAFDA ufike vele waba wena webantu abamnyama, and ngaphandle kwakhe SAFDA kulima ngabe kwafa lena kule 10 eminyaka ledlulile. Uma SAFDA ngazange wafika umlo omnyama ngawuhlele ekhaya ngakalimi umoba anymore.
The emergence of SAFDA reignited hope among countless farmers who had once given up, disheartened by the many challenges plaguing the sugar industry and forced to abandon their farms. With SAFDA's establishment came a renewed belief, and that spark of hope sparked an upward trajectory for farmers determined to return, rebuild, and thrive.
There's a little bit of a shift since the past 10 years, since the SAFDA came into existence, because we've been able to change the trajectory in terms of the number of farmers. We've been able to access, some development funding from government, and with that, there's a bit of an upward trajectory.
The first thing that started with SAFDA, between SAFDA and the department, was the provision of fertilizers to farmers. As basic as that, and it has now morphed into SAFDA also assisting in terms of post-settlement support, driving those processes, the procurement and establishment of FPSUs in different areas, and ensuring that broadly, as Dr. Madlala would always say, that the black farmer is in the forefront. And without any doubt, without the partnership that we have with SAFDA, some of these projects would have been difficult in terms of procurement, in terms of just reaching out to those who are assisted by this department. And we are grateful for the partnership over the 10 years, and I cannot even say that how many more years should this partnership be, but I hope that the partnership continues beyond the engagements that we have only in the sector, but in other sectors that are there, because I can see that SAFDA is even growing from its offerings to other areas.
There's all these little plots next to each other, and they go and see Umama, and she'll say, you see that field there, that put that one through varsity. I've got 3 teachers in this house. They are funded by my 5 hectares over there. Now those are things which are heartwarming.
Before you get a grant support, you need to have a proper business plan. SAFDA deployed officials to come here to work with us to develop those business plans. As a direct result of what SAFDA did, we got about 33 million in grant, which we could not have gotten.
uSAFDA efika la bezingekho insizwa zokusebenza uma ngasho ufika izithelo la sesilungele ukuharvest and ububone ngempela siyaphoqa ufike sibuyele kubelungu aba uSAFDA wasilethela insizwa zokusebenza ngoba lezi ezikahulumeni into efika manje ubalaka iminyaka ewu5 kuba kuSAFDA usilethelanga insizwa shuthi ngabe lamaplaza awo hloka ngesikhathi efika konke nomkhiqizo kwaphela lapho ngabe imama mhlawumbe isiqala ke sithi ke siya ngoba iplaza okumbi imake lafa kanye kuba nzima ukulivusa so through SAFDA nakho namhlanje sesizinane insizwa zethu zokusebenza.
For many farmers, the days before SAFDA's establishment were marked by struggle and despair. Farming felt more like a burden than a livelihood, with mounting debts and little to no return. But the arrival of SAFDA changed everything. Its impact turned farming into a viable business once again, offering growers real opportunities to succeed and build sustainable futures.
I think before SAFDA was introduced in Mpumalanga, we used to, whenever maybe would have growers maybe gathered together, like talking about maybe issues of growers that are facing growers in Mpumalanga, they would always point out the fact that they were getting zero statements, like meaning they were not making any profit from their operation. And so when SAFDA was formed, it was easier for the farmers to, in fact, they are now realizing that yes, in farming there is money. So they've started to see progress or to see that, okay, maybe this is a viable type of a business. And so, and that's through our intervention in terms of the programs that we have afforded the growers, like your fertilizer, your ratoon program that we had, I think in 2019, 2020, that those programs, they managed, or they enabled the cost drivers to especially your fertilizer cost is the biggest, followed maybe by your labor and so on and so on. So it enabled those cost drivers to shoot down, and so making farming more profitable and more sustainable for the growers.
Beyingekho imali, but when SAFDA came, into yashintsha yonke. We see positivity kuma bank statement. Uma kuphela inyanga after harvest uthole I paycheck yakho ukuthi isinemali. Ama intervention awenzile uSAFDA for the first time in Mpumalanga. It was difficult to get the government to participate kuma small scale sugarcane farming. Besingayitholi I-grant in Mpumalanga. So whether a flood relief or a grant, it never happened. Bekuba ilaw nje, it happened once. Last ayithola khona, but it was an individual effort nakhona. Ayikuthi wonke umuntu wa benefit. But depend ukuthi factory A, who is leading factory A. That's where then maybe babone leyo mali. Other than that, beku difficult. But ever since uSAFDA khona, fertilizer, eyashintsha the life of a farmer in Mpumalanga. Ever since then, farming yaba sustainable, because that was the difficult part from a farmer during that time, even of COVID-19, to buy a bag of 1,000 rand. So if it wasn't for SAFDA, maybe bese kube manje sinalenye crop other than sugarcane.
Lana kuhlukene nokuthi kwehliswe izulu lehliselwa kubalimi abalima ngokuncane. Isakhiwo lesi njoba sila sijabule kakhulu. uSAFDA owacabanga ukuthi akube nalezi zakhiwo ukuze zisize abalimi. Kunama office la ngaphakathi, ila kuhlala khona ithuluzi la ngaphakathi. Ngakho lesi sakhiwo ngesikhathi uSAFDA epropose kuhulumeni wawungathi iphupho. Sathi mas approve kwathiwa sizokwakhiwa, sajabula njengeingane ukuthi awu nakho sizokwenzelwa into enhle endaweni yakithi. Lesi sakhiwo ke kuthina siyimpumelelo yomlimi umnyama.
Sesiyawubona maye umphumela ukuthi ube umlimi. Uma usensimini uyazi ukuthi uexpecteni makuphela unyaka, than lesasikhathi uthola abelimi balima abathola istatements zabo 00. So impumelelo ikhona kakhulu.
USAFDA azange abe khona, akekho umuntu owayezokwazi ukuthi uyosikhulumela ukuthi uhulumeni akwazi ukusicabangela, akwazi ukusazi. Sasingeke size saziwe kwakuona uhulumeni ukuba kuzange kuze kube khona uSAFDA owayezokwazi ukunegotiate with uhulumeni on our behalf, asicelele insiza kusebenza. Sesithole uxhaso luka 55 million. Sitshalile amasimu amaningi ngalendlela ukuthi iproduction yethu yakhuphuka from 3,000 to 26,000 tons ngosizo lukaSAFDA, ngoba naleyo mali ngiyakhumbula nje ukuthi kwashukela kwakunomsindo ukuthi kuthiwe le mali abanganikezwa abalimi abancane ngoba umoba wabudliwa yinkomo futhi bayawushisa. Besithuka ngayo yonke inhlamba. uSAFDA wasimela sakwazi ukuyithola le mali, satshala sakhombisa ukuthi siyakwazi ukuthi sithuthuke masithola usizo lokulekelelwa through i-grant.
The positive impact is felt by the sector, the industry and farmers in at least 4 provinces across the country.
Ever since we have started working with SAFDA, they've been so much helpful in terms of now assisting us in terms of pinpointing the points where we should focus on in terms of your irrigation systems, your landmarks, your assets and equipment. So SAFDA has been very much helpful, ever since we've been working with them.
Whoa, siphumile ezintwaleni ngoSAFDA. USAFDA wasikhupha ezintwaleni e-Eastern Cape. Apho uSAFDA wavele nje wadeclareisha wathi 1.8 million grant sebenzani. Dinitrainile the whole week sihlele emhlanga sitrainwa khona. So how are we going to implement ezanto sifumene pha ku training? Funeka sibe nayo imali yoba sikwazi emhlabeni. Salima mbono bomvu sawusa edairy sane offtake agreement neNcocha Dairy Trust. Ze umbona wethu ke ngoku asulimileyo siwusanqo eNcocha Dairy Trust saphamisa izandla sathi hayi siyabulela SAFDA. Into senzele yona ususile ezintwaleni because okokuqala funeka umuntu kumnike into then asebenze then ngosiyaqhubekeka neza project zethu sizenze sizakhelwe nguSAFDA ziyakhula ziyanyelela. Waphinda ke ngoku uSAFDA nanku ke ngoku andiyazi le kulonyaka kunzima kulonyaka niyawubona umbono sinawo 210 hectares and sinayo offtake agreement siwulima nje silima ngespecification funeka ube usiyazi ba idiesel makanje whatever umbono makanje uya edairy straight with specification of which thina si try by all our level best.
Sesiqalisile ke ngoku ukudevelop no SAFDA sisayinile apha iagreement memorandum of understanding no SAFDA SA Farmers Development Association sisayinile iagreement yokuthi sifuna usebenza no SAFDA omnye umuntu asimfuni because umbonile uSAFDA ukuthi uyakwazi ukuphuhlisa abantu because wasithatha wasisa eKZN sabona ukuthi uSAFDA baphuhlisa kanjani abantu baseKZN satsho sasayina iagreement no SAFDA. Now sisebenza no SAFDA ngoku.
Messages of support poured in from SAFDA stakeholders, a clear testament to the organization's impact and credibility. From government departments to industry partners, financial institutions and community leaders, all echoed a common sentiment. SAFDA has become a vital force for transformation and progress in the sugar industry. These voices recognize the organization not only as a champion for small-scale and previously marginalized farmers, but as a partner committed to building a fairer, more inclusive agricultural future.
The message is very clear. They must continue with transformational agenda. And also, my plea is that as a South African farmers development, they must also include other farming products and so forth. They cannot be able to transform only the sugar industry. They must get into the space because you can see now the white counterpart, they are owning land, they are doing everything. But blacks are not owning anything, they are workers. So now the transformational agenda, it says we must change the narrative so that even blacks can be able to own land, can be able to till land and create some employment for the masses of our people.
I want to congratulate SAFDA for the milestone. 10 years is a big number. When you pass 10 years, it means you're ready to sow. There's no going back. You come a long way. It's been difficult. You could have easily gave up when the tough was going, but you kept on until now. All I can say is that you keep doing the good work. You are part of the people, especially in Nkomazi. I have seen when we interact with farmers that they see you as someone who is sitting there as their defense, and they will really want to grow with you.
I think SAFDA has done very well and has proved many naysayers wrong to say, it is a genuine organization, a progressive organization that just wants to improve the lot of the poor and the black people who have not given enough opportunities, have been closed out of industry, have been treated as third-class citizens in the sector. So I think SAFDA has done very well to open many doors. I mean, even to get the recognition in the industry is a big thing, because when they started, it was a struggle.
Should congratulate those farmers, particularly those small-scale farmers that have worked together through SAFDA as their voice to seek recognition and to seek attention. There's a lot of growth and development that's taken place over the industry, and I think that these last 10 years should be really a catalyst for the next 10 years. I believe that SAFDA, I believe that the industry can really grow and succeed. And if we've been able to weather the severe storms and thunderclouds and headwinds that we've seen over the last 10 years, I'm pretty sure that the next 10 can actually be successful and can deliver a real prosperity to all farmers across the country in the sugar value chain.
We congratulate SAFDA on their 10th anniversary. It is a milestone. It is not often, it's not usual that you find an African organization to live that long, especially those that are in the economic space. I think it is NAFCOC that have tried to struggle and survive turbulences. It is still on. And SAFDA must look upon those organizations. Do not commit mistakes that they committed that weaken them. They must stay strong. We emphasize that the leadership must be pragmatic. It must be focused on implementation, on changes and development of farmers. We want to congratulate that they have stayed together. They have not been squabbles. And once you've got squabbles and tensions, it then begins to have a problem and a decline.
As SAFDA looks to the future, the vision is clear: a thriving, inclusive and transformed sugar industry where every farmer, regardless of their background or scale, has a fair chance to succeed.
Where we are right now, we are at a stage whereby we will see a massive growth in this business, a growth that looks into infrastructure development. I would say those are the key, what we call strategic focus areas to build more revenue streams, to be self-sustainable and grow beyond levies, grow beyond one source of income or a couple of sources of income, build our sugar mills. I see SAFDA having achieved sugar mills in the near future. We are at a point whereby we can actually get to actually build our own sugar mills, obviously with the support that we'll enjoy from our funders. But we are credible enough. We have a solid name that we've built over the years that could give comfort to any potential funder.
We believe that a strategic opportunity for our farmers is that now they must participate in the value chain. They must own their own sugar mill and they must maximize the value of their sugarcane. They must not be just suppliers of sugarcane into other sugar mills.
Esisakubhekile enhlanganweni kaSAFDA ukuthi uSAFDA njengamanje asinqenqele kuhulumeni ukuthi lokho esikufunayo ukuthi mhlawumbe kube khona umshini la emakhathini la sizokwazi usigaya umoba wethu la kuyo yonke into esizoyenza ukugaya kwethu umoba la kuzobe kuletha amathuba kithi thina esilimayo futhi kuzobe kuletha amathuba kubantu abangalimi nasemphakathini nje wonkana wonke.
We believe this is an opportunity to introduce new technologies and efficiencies. So we don't want to just do the same old. We want to do things new, and we want black sugarcane farmers to be at the cutting edge of benefiting from some of these new products and to be doing it efficiently.
We see ourselves as a global player. We want to be
in business, proper business, competing with the capital of this world, so that we can then use those profits to enhance our development.
One thing that I would say SAFDA must do is never to allow the sugar industry to fall in the country, no matter what it takes. They must never do so. They must never tire to engage government about this industry. And they must never also turn their backs from small-scale farmers, much as it is not desirable that we talk like that and talk about small-scale farmers forever. Growth in the country, economic growth, is quite a challenge, and it's not about to change now, and therefore that industry must keep on going, and I believe that it can keep on going.
In just 10 years, the organization has reshaped the agricultural landscape, fought for justice, and empowered thousands of farmers. SAFDA hopes to continue breaking barriers, shaping policies, and creating opportunities that empower the next generation of growers. The journey is far from over, but the path ahead is filled with purpose, unity, and unwavering commitment to progress. The next 10 years promise even greater milestones as SAFDA continues to build an inclusive, thriving, and transformed agricultural sector.
A small-scale farmer will grow from being a small-scale farmer into a commercial farmer in our lifetime.
SAFDA gets things done.
As an organization, SAFDA cannot afford to fail. And that's not to say that we're too big to fail. I'm saying that we can't afford it for the country, for black farmers. We owe it to them.
Bawuthanda abantu sugar, so they are not about to drink tea without sugar.
We are a grassroots organization. We are attached to our farmers.
They may have not believed it, that it was not there altogether. And we've introduced transformation, and we're leading transformation as SAFDA.